Hey everyone, welcome to the Industry Show. I'm your host Nitin Bajaj, and joining me today is Sam Bogoch. Sam, welcome on the show.
Great to be here.
Pleasure to have you. So, Sam, let's get started with the big question. Who is Sam?
That's a tall order. Let's see. I'm a pragmatist who kind of comes from a scientific background, and I love anything that involves real world engineering, and I've had a fairly eclectic education and upbringing, and ended up in the software industry and kind of loving what I do.
That's awesome. We are glad to have you in the industry. Let's talk about what is Axol AI.
So the way we describe it is that we make media smarter. There is a long history of video media being used for a variety of purposes, and you know, historically broadcast, more recently things like social media. But the problem is that people are still thinking about video as a tape, for lack of a better term. And even though it's transitioned to hard drives, it is still a very kind of physical, people say, I have the video on this hard drive. Whereas in fact, what you want is a living, breathing thing that you can search and repurpose and slice up as you need for whatever intended purposes you have. And that's really where we want to get things, partly empowered by our software, partly empowered by AI and machine learning, and of course empowered by the people that use the software.
So, in terms of, when you described it, it almost came to me as people think of it as a linear resource, right? But what you're thinking of is how do I extract and extrapolate and make it a good fit for use for any kind of opportunity. So to be able to extract the right pieces from it and be able to use it for different purposes.
Exactly right. And you just going back to a little bit of the history of the industry, people used to stack videotapes on the shelf. Now they stack these hard drives on the shelf. They're not really thinking of the media as being accessible, except maybe they may remember where they had something, or they put post-it notes oftentimes on the media. But clearly the way things are evolving, almost every walk of life has a dynamic need for more media. This is everything from political campaigns to corporate marketing campaigns to the way sports is covered, and even religious organizations. They all are switching gears and saying, how can we make more of this content kind of individually accessible on a bite-sized basis, because nobody has an attention span measured in minutes or hours anymore. It's all in seconds. So that is a tall order.
And tell us the role that Axol plays in it, and also give us a sense of the size and scale of your operations, maybe some brands that you've been working with.
Absolutely. So we have about 700 customers worldwide. We're a company of 25 people, adding a few hopefully in the next month or two. And we will do about between 1.2 and 1.3 million in revenues this year, largely bootstrapped. We have raised some money, but we're not a typical venture-backed story where we poured in a lot of money and now we see some results. We've kind of built this over time with our customers.
That's awesome. And you've started mentioning about some of the different industries that you're touching upon. You said sports, but also on the other end, some nonprofits and religious groups. Give us a sense of maybe an example or two of either an industry or just a workflow, describing
Absolutely.
your ideal customer.
Sure. So one of our best customers is Madison Square Garden, the sports arena. And just to give an example, when we first visited them, they were literally housing all of their videos in duffel bags. They had these huge black athletic duffel bags with dozens upon dozens of these hard drives in there. And whenever they needed to find something, they would unzip the duffel bags and start pulling out hard drives and plugging them in sort of trial and error basis.
Wait, what year is this?
This is only 3 years ago. This is, you think, oh my gosh, it's the Stone Ages, but I can't tell you how many places I visit where that is still the archival format. Everyone likes to talk about the cloud, and the cloud has its benefits, but in the real world, 90% of this media just sits on these hard drives. Another example that, and now of course they've gotten well beyond that. They have it networked and searchable with our software, so it's a great story. Another example is Elizabeth Warren's presidential campaign last year. They did hundreds of, well, over 100 of these town hall meetings where people could ask her anything for hours on end. So they ended up capturing all the footage, putting it into our software, and then having a searchable repository so that when on Facebook, someone would come in and ask an obscure question, like they would say, I want to know what Elizabeth Warren thinks about Somalia.
Yep.
You know, they could search for the word Somalia in all of the town hall meetings, find the quotes, the sort of sound bites, and then edit up a quick video and push that back out saying, here's our position on Somalia. So it's the evolution of an election platform into a dynamic document that is basically on social media in real time, versus the old days when election platform would be typed out in single space pages, and you'd send a PDF at the beginning of the campaign and no one would ever read it.
That's a beautiful use case. Thanks for sharing. That makes it very relatable. Makes me think about what's the biggest challenge you're facing as a business?
For us, it's I think scaling more rapidly. Our business this year will be approximately double what it was last year. But for the next couple of years, to maintain that pace, we really need to accelerate our marketing and our outreach, because up until now, most of our customers have been inbound, and we've been fortunate that way. But for every Madison Square Garden, there are dozens or hundreds of other sports venues, and for every Elizabeth Warren, there are dozens of senatorial, presidential, gubernatorial campaigns, and so forth. And so it goes through the different categories. So now it becomes a marketing and sales channel of how quickly can we reach our intended audience in these vertical markets and let them know that this kind of technology is available.
True. On the flip side of challenges come opportunities, right? And what's the biggest one that you're targeting?
I would say it's really the entire explosion of video, coupled with two other important trends. One is remote work. We didn't see this COVID thing coming, but I don't think anyone did. But everything that our system does is through a browser and is accessible remotely. So we actually got quite a boost to our business, because people who used to just hand around hard drives are now able to remotely access their material and share it in a cloud-like environment due to our software. The second big change is the applicability of AI and machine learning to video. Until a couple of years ago, the horsepower was not really there, either software or hardware, to analyze what was in the video, and you would actually have to have interns tagging everything. Well, as you might imagine, that was not an attractive prospect, like hiring a squad of interns. But now that it can be done automatically, it's a huge opportunity. And then the third thing is just the growth of video itself. So if you take those three, each of them has a compound growth rate well into the double digits, and you say, what's the intersection of video, AI, and remote work? That may be growing at triple digits.
And just to dive deeper into that third aspect of the growth of video, right? A lot of those corporate meetings that happened in person are now happening on platforms like Zoom, which are getting recorded for the benefits of others. And so to be able to go through, that's a huge cost saving in terms of resources, right? That a particular person comes in and just wants to hear about certain keywords to be able to kind of search through that. Am I just making that up, or is that
that's a real use case, and much in the way that those town hall meetings were reused. We have customers like PricewaterhouseCoopers, who does it for their corporate messaging and all hands meetings. Coca-Cola in Europe uses it for their marketing campaigns. There are a lot of big corporates that are just deluged with the amount of video that they have to work with now. And it was already growing very rapidly before COVID. And now, of course, that has just accelerated a lot faster.
That's some real cost savings right there, right? So a lot of, it's a productivity tool for all purposes. Sam, as you look back in the rearview mirror, right? Whether with Axel or just even in your career, is there a success story that you're really proud of or a lesson learned that you want to share with us?
Yes, I would say for us, they maybe came packaged together. So
Mm-hmm.
we were approached last year to be acquired by a public company,
Mm-hmm.
not a huge one, but a very decent sized one. And we agonized over whether to sell. I specifically did, but our advisory board was pretty evenly split. Our employees were, I mean, everybody was of two minds about the thing. And what it came down to was a few things. This was during the very sort of first impact of COVID on the
Mm-hmm.
economy. So our orders were very slow, and we were sitting there going, "My God, do we even have a future?" Um, and we got just a few indications that there was a light at the end of the tunnel. We were also raising our first successful equity crowd fund, which
Mm-hmm.
were public, which we're doing again this year.
Mm-hmm.
And the combination of all these factors, I was like, I think we can get through this. And we had to make sacrifices, and people had to take temporary pay cuts, and there were a bunch of things that we had to do. So it was definitely a near-death experience for the
Mm-hmm.
company. Um, but I think in retrospect, we made the right decision. But it was a very close run thing. We could have just as easily gone the other way, taken the offer. There was good money in it for everybody, including the shareholders, but it just didn't quite feel right. And looking back on it, some of the assumptions that we questioned about the deal, I think we were right to question those. And in the end, they went out and acquired our biggest competitor. So what happened was, not only did we dodge the bullet, but our competitive space thinned out dramatically because all the things that we thought we'll get sucked into this company and maybe never heard from again. And you always worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
M&A is a tricky thing to really successfully execute, having been on both sides of it. And I've been in the position of the corporate person overseeing the acquisition, and it's tricky. So I just thought there's so much risk on that side that it makes going it alone look reasonable. And so we did, and here we are more than a year later, feeling pretty good about
Well, congratulations on that call. I know it must not have been easy, and it
it.
sounds like it was a collective effort and a lot of heart and stomach churning, but here you are to tell the story.
Exactly.
Sam, let's switch gears and get to know you a little better. And the way we do that is through a series of one-line life lessons. So I'd invite you to share a few of those with us.
Okay, I will do. I've got my little list here.
Okay.
And whenever I'm asked about rules to live by, or
Uh-huh.
the first and by far the biggest takeaway is that there are no such rules. So you have to, out of the following five things, the first one is the one to pay the most attention to, and it is that rules are generally wrong. So that's, ignore the rules is my first lesson.
Love it.
The second is to be patient.
Mm-hmm.
That particularly in the industry press, and if you look at all these success stories and 2020 hindsight that people put out, you would think that things happen overnight, and that in a matter of 18 months people go from zero to $1 billion valuation and this kind of thing. It almost never happens that way. Now, there are a few cases where it really can happen that way, and that's not to discount that those exist. But if you're going to live your life, you cannot assume, it's like, expecting to be hit by a bolt of lightning. That would not be a safe assumption, and it wouldn't be much fun either. So do not assume that things are going to happen in a flash. Assume that there's going to be some real patience required in building things out, and then things get a lot easier once you realize that.
It's as we say, the 10-year overnight success.
Yes, and actually we are in year 9 right now. So and our revenue just started doubling in the last. So maybe we're one of those. But
So right time to make that investment. Okay,
exactly.
noted.
Exactly. The third one is no jerks. Like if you're trying to build your team,
Yes.
or build your customer base, or build your investor base, because these are your three core constituencies. It's who you work with, who you work for, and the customer side, those are basically your bosses, and then who's going to invest in your company. If you spot somebody that you think is really going to irritate you, do not just accept the momentum of whatever's going on and sign them up for that, because you will regret it for months or years. Pick carefully. If those people are good people and you like them and they're smart, then you get a lot of mileage from it. And the cost of disregarding that and of having a continuous thorn in your side is so outsized that actually, it makes that one rule probably worth listening to out of all five, in addition to the first one. So I'm already breaking my rule about no rules.
Well, like you said, they're meant to be broken. So
that's right. The fourth one is to make sure you really enjoy what you've chosen as your mission, because in keeping with the other things, you're going to have to be patient. So if you just picked an idea out of a hat and have no real gut allegiance to that particular path, it'll be okay for 6 months, but after 12 or 18 months, you'll be saying, why the heck did I sign up for this, right? I mean, now I'm doing arbitrage software for investment banks or whatever. If you don't love doing that, don't sign up for it, because it is likely to be a multi-year journey. And actually, to that same point, if you do love it, then you will be able to see it through, and you'll be able to convince other people to join you on that journey.
It is so important, right? And having the right team, and the point you made about no jerks, it's oftentimes, especially when we are going through the startup journey, we are so tempted to give in because resources are so limited, and but not realizing that having that thorn is going to be so destructive to the whole process. Yep. And same thing with having that love and passion, that you are going to see the ups and downs. So you really need to really be in it for the right reasons.
Yep. No, for sure. Especially in our case. And again, there are much more opportunistic things out there where people do get quick wins. And I mean, that's more than just anecdotal. It really happens. And I suppose in those circumstances, you just got to hang in there for 18 months. It's more the Silicon Valley. I've lived out there for 10 years. Yeah. And it wasn't quite so, I would say, tactical and transactional when I was out there. This is in the late 90s and early 2000s. Today, it's just like, okay, where can I go next for the next 12 to 18 months that'll be the right stepping stone to the thing that, so I get all that. And there are people that do that to a T. But at least in my case, I'm more of a plugger. I got a very early start on my education in life, and I kind of zoomed through that. And then everything since then, I've tried to be a little more deliberate. So which brings me to my last point, which is when in doubt, listen to your customers. Because again, on the journey, if you listen to your customers and make sure that you are doing what they need, then the fundraising will be easier, the recruiting will be easier, and the whole thing will be significantly lower friction than if you're trying to extract something from them or do something against their will, or potentially doing product designs that are not really a product market fit. So when I'm in doubt, I just think, what do my customers really want here? Who are those? What are they looking for? And then we make sure that we're fit for that purpose. And generally the results follow. And then the investors get excited because you've got great customers. I mean, we have all 700 customers. They're not all huge names, but with people like Warner Brothers, NBC Universal, Paramount, New York State of California, federal government, European governments, the list goes on, and it's like, those are good people to listen to at this point. And I have investors who come in and say, why don't you pivot and go do blockchain? And it's like, because I've got several hundred big name customers that tell me they like what we're doing. We might be able to make more money in the very short term doing blockchain, but that's just not what we're about.
It's knowing your customer, what their needs are, and doing your best to keep them delighted.
Exactly.
Sam, this was wonderful. Thanks for making the time to be with us today. And good luck with your journey. Good luck with what you're doing at Axol. And looking forward to hearing more updates from you and seeing more zeros in front of the number of customers you have. And would love to bring you back on when you probably have 7,000 customers in the next couple of months.
We would love that. And by the way, I would be remiss if I didn't mention specifically our Republic Equity Crowd Fund,
Yes.
which is underway now. So it is through the end of September, and it's republic.co/Axol, AXLE -AI. So republic.co/Axol-AI. We are also looking to do a price round potentially in the fourth quarter. But for the next 6 weeks or so, we're very focused on the Republic round, and we've already outraised our entire raise from last year. So
wow.
Basically halfway in, we're well beyond. It's probably about 4x what we had at this point in last year's raise. So that's pretty exciting.
It is, and we'll make sure to post the link with the show so people can get to it pretty easily. And yeah, good luck and congratulations again on your journey so far.
Thanks so much. I've enjoyed this.
Thanks, Sam.